Today we're going to learn about oil pastel techniques and the various ways that you can use oil pastels. The best way to think of oil pastels is like basically another form of painting, but you're painting with like a stick. So there's various ways that you can use them to create kind of painterly like effects. For one, could be light pressure. Now to do light pressure, I'm not pressing down. I'm holding kind of far back on my oil pastel. And I'm not really pressing down, just enough to graze the paper to get the color. If I wanted to blend another color in with it, say I take the screen, I do the same. I'm just barely raking over it. Enough to fill it in, but not enough to really press it down. I'm just moving it over the top. Now high pressure on the other hand is where I'm applying more pressure. So when I go to color it, I'm pressing harder into the paper. Previous one I had before, and you'll notice whenever I go over the other color, they can kind of start to mix together a little bit. That's normal. Now stippling, or let's go back to high pressure a second. High pressure basically means I'm just adding pressure. I'm increasing, making sure that the pressure is pressed down, making sure that basically I'm pressing into the paper or onto the canvas, whatever I'm using these on. Now, stippling. Stippling is basically pointillism. You're making dots. Now they're not perfectly round dots. You're just pressing down enough to lay down an area of color. The more you layer, the more that color gets. Just like in pointillism or stippling with drawing. If I take another color, you can also start to stipple in between this. This is really good for making like trees and leaves with a lot of value. In fact, why don't I grab orange, yellow, and red to make some fall leaves. Now if you look at my yellow right here, it's a little dirty. Down here, if you take your oil pastels and draw out with them like this on a clean sheet of paper, you can start to clean them. That's one way of doing it. So say I did yellow stippling, let me go in between with orange. Go in between again. It makes a very nice texture, like just a dappled texture. Stippling is a very versatile technique when using oil pastels. Okay, now thin lines. Let's find a good oil pastel. With thin lines, you can either, you're basically using the edge thinner lines. But thick lines, if you lay it real flat, you get thicker lines. So thin lines are if you're vertical and going more on an edge. Thick lines are if you're practically flat. You can technically peel off this paper, lay your whole oil pastel and make one big, and press down and make one big line. That is actually fairly common use, especially if you're using larger scale sheets of paper. Okay, Sgraffito. Sgraffito's kind of fun. Let me clean this pastel a little bit. It's got some blended colors onto it. Okay. Now, Sgraffito means you're going to take high pressure. Press into it. And then you are going to take something, I'm going to use a yarn needle. You can use practically anything with a hard edge. Basically, you can use forks, you can use scissors. I don't really recommend scissors because you can cut through your paper. A popsicle stick, you know, a dull pencil, you know, anything like that, as long as it has like a hard end to do Sgraffito. And what you do is you'll just start drawing into it. And what happens is it scrapes up some of that excess oil. Sometimes you'll have to pull off the excess. And it makes it lighter underneath it. And you just end up drawing into it. So like I said, you can use just about anything with a hard edge as long as it doesn't really rip up your paper any. And like seriously, you could sign your name doing this. You know, it's just like, for example, I'll do it over here. Good hard pressure. See? Just scratching into it is all it is. Now, I'm gonna do top layer scratch off, which basically is a form of Sgraffito, but I'm gonna take like a card. Instead of something small, I'm gonna take a card and a wide area, and I'm gonna start scratching it. Just trying to scrape up what was left down. Now I'm gonna leave some part of it like not scratched off, because I can now take, say, another color, go over it, and I could possibly even take my Sgraffito tool and underneath of it will pop through. Some kind of flower or something like that. It doesn't like to work very well, but it's some way of doing it. So that basically also provides a lighter color and less of that kind of oily surface. Okay, highlight with white. Now to highlight with white, it's kind of self-explanatory. I'm gonna take some color here then I'm going to take a white. I'm going to make sure my white is fairly clean. And I'm going to go white over it. And this stuff blends together really easily. You can actually take your finger and blend it further, but that's another technique there. Your finger does end up getting dirty, so you can use gloves and things like that to help blend it as well. But as you can see, like, that's a very nice blend. You lay down enough oil pastel, they will blend together like perfectly, especially like in areas like high pressure. If I take this and start going in circles, they'll start blending together. And I just kind of push it around. Now doing it on this right here, it kind of smooths it out, but there's not enough of it laid down to really push around and get into those little crevices. So if you are gonna blend it with your fingers or anything like that, make sure that you have enough of it laid down, because doing it on light pressure like here, it won't work. High pressure, more than likely gonna work. This right in here, especially. Now shadow with black. Of course, you can always take this. Now black is very strong. It tends to overtake. So you have to be kind of careful. So if I put one little streak of black here, you can see I need to add more color to that. So if I go back with it, what I like to do with the shadows is to basically, I prefer using color for shadow, but if you have to use black, I always like to go back over it with the previous color just to unify it and cut that black a little bit. Now, like I said, you can blend light colors together. So if I do some red here and some yellow here, you can see the orange forming in the middle. You just add a little bit of high pressure to it. I'll get a cleaner finger here. Then I can blend between both of them and smooth it out. It creates a really nice realistic shading effect too, and you just got to be careful because you see right in here I kind of started to overwork it. It didn't take much. Like I said, you can also practically blend it just using the oil pastels themselves. I could take this and go over and over and over with it, and then one next to it, go over and over and over with it, and the oils will blend it together. Just going back and forth. So just remember, you can clean them off. Then I'm gonna take up some of my stuff from right here. Decided to come down here, but that's some of the perils of it. You just have to pay attention to what you're doing and what fingers are dirty and versus what. So that is mainly the bare bones basic of oil pastel techniques. A lot of what you'll end up using will be something like scratching the layers off, highlighting with white, adding or stippling. Those are going to be the main things. Light pressure is not used a whole lot because the vibrancy really comes out when you use high pressure. Understand that oil pastels are oil based. If you really kind of want to watch what clothes you're wearing. You can wear an apron or an overshirt. You know, something that will protect your clothes a little bit, because these are basically grease. So if you do get some on your clothes, you need to follow laundry instructions for removing grease stains, because that's what's going to do it. Just understand that sometimes the pigments may not come out of the clothes as well from there. You can pre-treat your clothes with Dawn and that'll help as well, but mainly try to keep your area clean. Try to keep yourself and your area clean. I highly suggest working with like wet wipes or like a wet rag next to you, so in case you are using your fingers, you can quickly clean your hand, and that way you can keep working. Or you can wear, of course, some kind of latex or or vinyl gloves to help kind of smear it. You can also basically just smear it using the crayon or any technique along that. Some people you can use solvents with these. If you were to get paint thinner or turpentine, something like that dilutes oil, you can make these smooth out a little bit more. That's just a technique that not everybody has access to, but that's just one way of doing it. So that may be something I'll show in a later video, but mainly what you're gonna need, bare bones, is this right here. So I'm gonna work on our next technique video, and I will see you next time.